Hi, and welcome to the Frog Pond School of Design, where we talk about a wide variety of issues that relate to architecture, and sometimes we just tell stories that you might not have otherwise heard. I'm guessing that if you have any interest whatsoever in the construction business, the construction process, that you would enjoy a book called The Great Bridge. This book is written by David McCullough, who is widely recognized for the extensive research that he does for all of his books, so that you always know that you're going to find a lot of fascinating and reliable information. Well, in The Great Bridge, he tells about the building of the Brooklyn Bridge. And the designer of that bridge was John Roebling. John Roebling was a Prussian immigrant to the United States who was widely recognized as the leading bridge designer of his day. He also really liked suspension bridges. So he got this bridge designed, and in the first of the real trials and tribulations that came about, he was injured in an on-site accident shortly before they began to actually construct the bridge. He crushed his foot between a dock and an incoming ferry, and eventually contracted tetanus and died. Well, this left his son Washington Roebling to take over the project. Now, this was in the latter part of the 19th century, and if you know anything about construction during that time, you know that new things, methods, materials were coming along constantly. Some were tried and proven, others weren't. So there were a lot of things to be sorted out in the planning for this bridge. One of the things, as an example, was that steel was just beginning to take over from iron in structural work, and Roebling knew that they needed steel for this bridge. In fact, they specifically needed steel for the cables that supported the bridge, and no suspension bridge had ever been built using steel cables before. And to make matters worse, the best quality steel cables available were manufactured by, of all people, the Roebling family. Well, folks back then were every bit as suspicious of this kind of relationship as they would be today, so they had to jump through a lot of hoops and do a lot of things to get approval to use the Roebling family cable for the bridge. So things moved on at that point. But probably the biggest problem they ran into had to do with the caissons. They used caissons to set the foundations for the towers. Actually, the caissons became the foundations. The workmen inside them were digging out the dirt to lower the caissons to the appropriate level below the bridge, and to keep the water out of them, they pumped in compressed air. Well, another thing we didn't know a whole lot about at the time was a condition we call the bends, which more appropriately is known as decompression sickness or decompression disease. And men were getting sick from this. Some even died. And eventually, Washington Roebling himself became disabled by the effects of the decompression. So, John Roebling is dead. Washington is bedridden. Who's going to finish the project? Well, not everyone was willing to admit it at the time, but today it's pretty well documented that the real hero, the person who stepped forward and took over supervision of the project through its completion, was none other than Washington's wife, Emily Roebling. Yeah, you could do a lot worse than give this book a try. Hey, thanks for joining us today at the Frog Pond School of Design. I hope to see you hanging around the pond again real soon.